we'll start with this, and maybe if anyone wants to have a go.
Is this 1-to-1?
No,
Water
slightly less. Slightly less. So, I mean, well, this is 1.8 liters.
Yeah.
So it's 3.6 liters and 2 kilograms in this case. Yeah, and the thing with hempcrete, it's very satisfying when you do it in the end, but the process itself cannot be that fun. Because it's very much sort of repetitive work that you kind of do, and it can get pretty effective when you have a sort of a school team, and you can be quite fast. But yeah, it's sort of, you know, repetitive kind of movements. It's good to kind of switch around, but of course it's important to have the same people, at least on, you know, segments, doing the same kind of jobs for consistency, basically.
To put some zen into it.
Exactly. Or do some crazy things. So then we mix it like so, and we won't really have the danger of it balling up in this case, but the key is to, for all the trainer, all the shifts to be covered in the line. Yeah, exactly. And that's when you get the bowls, basically.
Já, þetta kemst fljótt upp yfir bara svona þannig leið og hann var sem sagt að blanda vatni og vatni.
And you see it slowly.
Og líka bara það gerist best að setja í kaffi og byrja við prófum ýmislegt og það var bara og það var mjög skemmt að sem að fjall nei, það var ekki fyrir að svona undir
So that's kind of nearly there. What I will just do now.
right here.
Yeah, I know. What I'll do is spin it just with the good old manual stick, just to kind of get it in. And this is the kind of havrekreuz consistency that you want, basically. And you, still not fully mixed, but for this purpose, they're pretty soon enough.
And just to say that when you're doing it on a bigger scale with like a concrete mixer, it gets really dusty, and that's when you really have to protect your
Mask and and crucially, sort of like it's even good to have like double layer, so latex gloves and then these gloves, because it is a aggravating substance, the lime. So
and this tends to get everywhere. You know, you're mixing and then you're pouring it in, and so you want long sleeves.
yeah.
En eru þeir að flytja þetta læm hérna inn?
Ekki ennþá, nei.
Enginn tekið það að sér?
Nei.
Ég var ekkert að tala við einhvern í Mexíkó eða eitthvað, hann var að búa svona til, sko. Þú veist, ég fór ekkert lengra með það, en þannig að hann var tilbúinn að gefa það, sko, ef ég myndi gera eitthvað skýrslu um það, sko.
Nú, ok.
En ég var ekki tilbúinn með þetta, þú veist, ég náði ekki að rækta hérna þennan hamp, skilur við, hérna trefja. Ég var bara búinn að fínóla hann hérna bara hjá mér.
Okay.
And then this is kind of like a sense check, what you do. So like when you boil it up, you take a bowl, and then you kind of split it, and if it splits kind of nicely, so it doesn't just fall into pieces, that means it's kind of getting to the right consistency. So that's kind of like your sense check.
If it splits?
If it splits, but if it splits cleanly.
Okay.
Yeah, if it just falls apart, like then it, it needs a bit more mix, or there's, might not be enough lime, for instance, to bind it, to glue it together.
And also, like when you're making the ball, if there's lots of water dripping,
Yeah.
it's too much water.
Then it's too much water. Instead of this is kind of, that's about right. It kind of has a little bit of water, but not too much, because obviously it doesn't want to be too dry, as we've
Or
explained
too
earlier.
wet,
Or too wet.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, with wetness, it's, you know, you lose out on the drying time, basically, and it can become denser, and yeah. So it's sort of striking the right balance between the three things.
Yeah. But important, like that the prene is covered with the lime.
Yeah. So you see that there isn't, everything is kind of gray and covered here, basically. And of course, there will be some loose pieces that will come off of the edges, that's no problem, but it's kind of the majority of it should be covered. Yeah, so then maybe just to start mixing it in here. So imagining this is a wall, you do everything in layers. So you put in a layer that will cover the bottom of the wall, and typically you sort of try to go segment by segment. So you know, if you have a certain wall, you try to cover it up to the same level using your entire mix, which is kind of, you know, in a big tub like this. But as I explained, like when there are joints, for instance, so if you finish the casting for the day, you want to kind of leave diagonal sort of edges, so that the next mix the next day will bind cleanly, basically. And the same thing applies for like lintels and things like that. So wherever it kind of stretches over across an opening, you want to do that in one go, not split it for obvious reasons, basically. And then typically, you have a tamping stick, but a good practice is simply to do it by hand, not to compress it too much, because it loses on the insulation qualities. But around the edges, where you want this to be kind of clean, so you typically go around the outer perimeter, basically, like so. So that creates a stronger...
This is the absolute sin. I mean, it should be, you should press it a little bit, but not too much.
Yes.
The butter should be soft, but not too soft.
Exactly, you know, so that's where the poetry kicks in.
You should do a little bit, but not too much.
But yes, now come like that. And that's it. And then basically, you know, you go the next round and follow the same tight but loose principles. Like so. And then you spread it, you tamp it down, and it kind of, you know, like with any material, it's sort of finding a feel for it. And then you begin, you know, to see how it kind of is.
If you would do it in everything, you know, in one, it would not be compact enough. Or
Yeah, I mean, well, you wouldn't control it, and then obviously, like at the edges, so often when you're doing it in formwork, there's things that you need to kind of go around to fill in pieces.
Sure.
So it wouldn't be possible, and it's not like concrete. It's not a liquid that just pours in and forms.
Yeah.
You have to help it.
you not use a vibrator.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't work. Yeah, so it's basically this, and then like aesthetically, optically, in the end, then you get these nice kind of stripes that kind of, you know, are part of the material, basically.
And
That's
also,
how it is.
obviously, you know, you will be filling up more height each time than in this case.
Yeah. And then, the other thing is obviously the formwork. So it's again economies of scale. You don't want to sort of board everything up. You want to be able to access it. So you know, you typically do it by strips, sort of 600 or whatever it is high. And then you finish with one cast, you move on to the next, and the next day you move the bottom ones higher, and so on. It's kind of this kind of process. Yeah, I guess. And then as we see, you're kind of filling in, stepping down, leaving the interior more loose, and trying to kind of keep the level throughout as we go along.
But does this bind strongly with the surface here, or does it come out easily?
It usually
take
comes
this
out
apart?
easily, but sometimes you want to sort of scrape it off if there is.
Yeah.
So typically, you know, there will be some bits that are stuck.
Yeah,
And then-
you don't put any oil or anything to.
Not in our case.
Not to
Create like a smooth surface.
yeah, or to just to release the formwork more easily. I don't know.
You
Yeah.
need to like slide it sideways, so don't pull it,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
this movement.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because
that's
it
kind of
binds
the
really well
system.
with So you always need to like wash quickly
Yeah.
everything because it binds really well with most of everything except maybe plastic.
Yeah, exactly. But we haven't, like in our case, we haven't used oil. I mean, I did think about it, but yeah, it seemed to have worked quite well. Yeah.
But have you tried different materials, like the way we play with concrete, with,
Not yet.
with
Yeah.
boards or plywood or even we even used plastic sheets to get like
Exactly,
perfectly
really smooth surface.
smooth surface on the
No,
concrete.
we haven't played with this yet, but like in Britain they use sometimes these kind of plastic reusable formworks, which obviously then don't bind as much as with OSB, basically. So yeah, that's kind of the next next stage of experimentation. But of course, you know, it is hempwood, so it's you know, you will always get a clean but always this quite textured surface. You'll never be able to achieve a very kind of smooth
Yeah, I
finish
don't think
as
you
you
get
would
the
with
board
concrete.
finish like with concrete, where you see the lines of
Grains.
the
Yeah, it's too rough a material, too big elements to really get to it. But for instance, you could start playing with indents, for instance, and things like
It
that.
would be interesting though to think about also, because basically what you did in the house, it was like building a concrete house. There was this friend of mine studied in England, and when he moved back to Iceland, he said, "Oh, you're so stupid. First you build 2 houses, then you pour one, and then you tear down 2 houses." What kind of economy is that? So I have been thinking, because I was once with a Canadian architect. I was working here, and he had this idea, instead of making all this formwork and pouring concrete into formworks, to make the floor,
Yeah.
and then make each side just lying down, just pour it with the windows and everything, then raising it up
Yeah.
like this, and then the 2 sides like this,
Exactly. And all of a sudden, you don't have to dismantle and put up everything.
which I think could also
Totally.
be a method with this, especially when you have these many layers,
Yeah.
and you could be maybe quite interesting to do it lying down, and just having it on the floor,
Yeah.
and then it's finished, and then you
Just erect it.
raise it up,
Yeah.
put it on a trailer, and take it somewhere.
Exactly. And it's been done like this in terms of cassettes in England. Like Flat House is a good example of that. So the only thing one has to be aware is obviously it's easier. And when we did, for instance, the deck, it's much more simple. You just go, it's lying down like this. It's not a thing. You don't have to sort of follow up. You don't have to climb up. The higher you go, you have to finish the element. There's so many kind of intricacies that are involved with it. But what you do get with this, obviously, when you have the studs inside, is you don't get any thermal bridges. Whereas with kind of stud work, where you have to kind of erect it, you get these hearts. So, but you can just work around it, and you can just have smaller pieces that are kind of filled in, and you think about it that way.
Now it's intriguing, the possibilities, really.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
but well, unfortunately, I'm about to quit working, so you'll have to do it. Sorry.
Come on, you can.
No help from me.
So would anybody like to try, just to get a feel for it? There is my dirty gloves, and there's some cleaner ones over here, if you'd like. Which are ones? These are.
Where's this one?
Yeah, these are just latex ones.
Yeah, they might break.
That might break.
Break.
I would use.
Yeah. you want to kind of, you know, spread it all the way to the kind of edge with your hands. And kind of like the fists, sort of down, exactly, you just kind of thump it, and then use the stick over the edges.
But the insulation values for the total thickness of the wall, like, it's quite a thick wall, so there's much thicker than insulated. Covering.
Kannski getur að prófa þessu.
Yes. Oh yeah. In terms of like how the U values, yeah, absolutely. Like a 300, we're 350, right? It's 300. No, 300. Yeah. I think you get. I remember it was like 0.16 or something. Yeah, so quite decent. And of course, the thicker you go, then you can sort of go.
Yeah, but once you go, I think above, like, I can't remember exactly what. It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
No.
The thicker, I mean, so if you go to half a meter thick, it's not going to be
Yeah.
a super. And then the walls won't dry out properly.
Yeah. So there's a.
Do you know what the working time before it hardens? Some materials is very short.
Yeah, so I mean, basically in terms of being able to take off the formwork, you know, unless it's super humid, like 12 hours should be enough.
But then I'm talking about, you know, when you are putting it in, how much time can you be?
Oh,
putting it in?
with this type of line, yeah. I mean, you have sort of an hour. Yeah, or maybe even more, kind of before it to use the mix basically. Yeah. But this is with this hydraulic hydrated line. But if you use sort of quick line, which is the hot one, then it's much better. Then you really have the line becomes hot, you know, and it sets quicker, so it dries quicker, but also sets much. So yes, you really have to rush. So this is.
Ég var ríkt á svona.
I thought it was like the tiling glue, you know?
Yes.
If you want like hot water, it's thick. I thought it was like
No. It's just
the material line.
the line, exactly.
Du klarar það?
Jú, takk til síðasta. Ég sulla svo mikið sko að ég þor ekki. Kona mín segir ég get ekki borðað sko að þess að koma tilbaka allir í.
Yeah. For later, you know.
Yeah. So, I'll leave it to the experts.
Yes.
So, how long have you been here?
In Iceland?
Yeah.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
just over 3 years now. So,
And so you're interested in languages?
yes,
Yes.
yes. Although I'm still embarrassed not to be a Talameki meira, but
Yeah, I think you're doing really well.
I can understand
Yeah, you can understand quite a bit.
reasonably. Yeah. But I have to get more disciplined about taking it.
I'd start with the grammar.
Yeah. Although, you know, it's for me it's the vocabulary that's the hardest thing, because the words are not similar to anything else.
Okay.
So that's what I find.
Well,
like,
it's pretty similar to German. Excuse me.
yes, I know, but I don't speak German. You see, I speak the Latin languages and the Slavic ones.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so this is like
It was quite wet at the,
yeah.
at the,
So
at the,
kind
at
of
the bottom.
typically in this
so-
case we would sort of, you know, reuse this and use it in the next mix.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, this was fun.
Sauna, initiated.
Yes.
Almost ready.
Almost ready, exactly. And I had to keep the mix small. I mean, we can do another one. But yeah, you kind of want a bigger tub. Because if you do more of this, then it's harder to mix in a small bucket, basically.